15 things world leaders have to know that normies have no idea. I'm going to start with some obvious and hindsight ones, and towards the end, I'll share some darker ones. The first one is resources are power, not just wealth. It's not just about owning resources, oil, water, rare earths. You have to also control their flow, who gets them, when, and how. There are choke points all across the world, like the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, and pipelines that are considered as powerful as having a military base. Countries will destabilize entire regions to prevent rivals from accessing or consolidating control over these resources. So you see a lot of this playing out right now today. And if you're seeing this like sometime in the future, it's what's going on is Iran is blocking the Strait of Hormuz because basically what happened is Israel, our good buddy, told us to they didn't say attack them outright. I mean, maybe they told Trump, who knows? But they said that they were going to strike Iran. And for some reason, the US preemptively strike them. And we know the reason. Israel controls like our politicians and stuff like that, especially those in the Trump administration. Right now, what's going on is because we struck Iran, they knew this whole time what was going on. They've had strategies in place for this very thing happening because they control such a powerful route and they know that Israel hates them. They're like, Iran, if you don't know, is Israel's number one enemy. And it's obvious why Israel chose now to strike them. It's because they are basically in full control of the US. Iran was prepared. As soon as the US striked, they implemented that plan instantly. It was like we fell into a trap. But anyone who knows anything about like geopolitics would know that it's a trap. It just happened to be that our world leader, our commander in chief, has no idea about geopolitics. He's still like stuck in the 50s, like Cold War era, where we're very dominant, and he thinks things are going to play out like World War II. We're all going to unite against Iran, but we're not. I'm talking about the Axis powers. Okay. Trump has asked a lot of people to help him unblock the Strait of Hormuz. But the thing is, like, the Strait of Hormuz is right on Iran's doorstep. It's very much within their territory. And so there's nothing you can do to stop them. You would have to invade them, and they're well prepared for invasion. If you think they resisted having the world leader killed, having them bombed, they're bombing Israel right now. They're like counter striking them. They can survive a ground invasion. We would be going in on short notice, basically. In order to plan an invasion, you'd have to do it. You'd have to plan for it like years in advance. And I'm sure there is some kind of plan already in place. There's probably a plan for every country for us to invade them, kind of like how Batman has a plan for taking down every member of the Justice League in case they turn. But it's one thing to have a general plan, and it's another thing to actually have to implement it, especially during this time where the economy is really not good. And in the other points that I'm going to go over, we're going to see how that affects like military. So yeah, resources are power, not just wealth. Next one, strategic reserves and buffer zones. This is related to the last point. It's just every world leader knows that that you need to keep resource stockpiles like oil, grain, lithium, or gold for leverage. Leaders are trained also to maintain buffer states or friendly governments around key resource transit zones or borders. And that's the whole reason Israel exists. There is like a weird, I guess you could say, like conspiracy about like Pax Judica and stuff like that Professor Zhang is spreading. And I'm sure like that's on some level that's true. But the reason they chose the reason why those 2 points are aligned is because Israel is in a very strategic spot. It's like in the middle of all like the other Middle East countries. So if we control that area, we can kind of control all the other surrounding areas, or at least put pressure on them. But the thing is, Israel, weirdly enough, it kind of became what you would call a golem. In Jewish mythology, creating a golem is bad because you create, and it's kind of like a Minecraft golem. It's just like a thing made out of immaterial objects. You create a golem to do a task for you, but then it starts to have a mind of its own. And that's basically what Israel is. It's our golem. It's the U.S. Well, very much the West. I mean, if you want to blame anybody, it's really Britain who like put forward this idea, and it's why to this day they still fight for Israel's interests. Okay, it's because they instituted them. They use them. We use them too, since we are part of the West. And like that's why we have it. You can look at the conspiracy side of it, that there are these powerful interests within the Jewish community. And I'm very careful to say that it's like a lot of people will say, oh, it's all Jews. Like all Jews think this. No, it really isn't. It's the elite of that society. So do not have like hate against like the average Jewish person. A lot of people will bring up the Talmud, but the Talmud is not, it is an official holy text, but you can think of it as like a forum between Jewish leaders. It's like a very long Twitter thread, and some people say crazy shit in that, but that doesn't mean that's like the belief of all Jewish people. So we're gonna move on. Energy drives everything. Leaders are taught that cheap and stable energy, especially oil and gas, is the backbone of a strong economy and military. This is why energy independence is often treated as a national security issue, not just an economic one. Renewable energy is viewed geopolitically as whoever leads in battery tech, solar, or rare earth refinement may control future power balances. So what does all of this mean? At the very foundation of all things is energy. Energy. Like even to a human being, the number one thing you need is energy. You need food. It creates ATP. It creates action. You can do action if you have energy. It's the same thing as above, so below. We're talking about hermetic principles again. On the human level, you need energy. On the country level, you also need energy. And where do we get this? Oil, gas, food. These things, we need to have it, but not just have enough to get by. We need a lot of it. Because when there's a surplus, the country functions really well. It's like having a lot of vitamin supplements, like just having like a good amount of energy going. And so when the price of oil goes up, guess what happens? Everything else goes up. The price of everything else goes up, and then suddenly you don't have enough energy for things because oil drives supply in this country. It drives the supply of our semis, it drives the supply of people going to work, and it drives shipping. And this is all the economic activity. All of that needs oil to function. If we don't have a good oil price, or we don't have enough oil in general, then things get crazy really fast. So, and it really confounds me that we don't invest more in like solar power, but it makes a lot of sense because the oil industry basically wants to push back the progress of that tech branch, I guess you could say, as further down the line as possible. They don't want solar power because then when there's solar power, you can't charge people for using the sun because the sun is free. Like the sun provides energy to all. And it's probably the most fundamental of all things. The sun, there's a reason why people worship the sun, because you can feel like primitive societies, primitive civilizations, primitive tribes, they worship the sun because the sun, you can see how powerful it is. You can see how it burns things, but it not just burn thing, but like it causes things to grow as well. When there's no sun, things don't grow. So the sun is almost like a god that provides limitless energy to everyone. The things standing in the way are people digging up fucking old ass bones. They're digging up the earth's blood to power our machines instead of using the sun's energy. Because when you control oil, you can put a price on it. You can put an industry around it, and it's easy to control other countries by leveraging oil. You can, as with the Strait of Hormuz, as we've seen, they're kind of strangling the rest of the world by closing the Strait of Hormuz. They're putting pressure on the US to stop invading. They want a total surrender, and Trump is too prideful to provide a total surrender. He refuses to go down in history as someone who lost a war, like a very short war at that. So for his ego, we are probably going to put boots on the ground. We're probably going to escalate in Iran, but no matter how much we escalate, it's like, we're not going to win. No one's going to come to our aid. We're not going to, it's delaying the inevitable, I'll say. And it's even worse because Israel is also saying they're not going to send any troops, which is like fucking insane because we're fighting this war for them. It's not for us. Anyway, solar power is a future. Energy drives everything. The people stopping us from utilizing solar is the oil and gas industry. They are lobbying the government. But let's move on. This is stuff like if you're somewhat casually into politics, you will know this stuff. And this is also the next one. Every country has a breaking point. States are not infinitely stable. Leaders track unemployment tolerance, inflation tolerance, ethnic and religious tension, public patience for war. And they know the stress level before civil unrest arises. And so if you're wondering why all of these things, it seems like all of these things are going bad right now. They have been going bad for quite some time, like 10 years. I remember when Trump got elected the first time, people were like, oh, we're overdue for when it was towards the end of Trump's first term, we were starting to say, or you were starting to hear in the news, we are overdue for a market crash. This market crash never fucking happened. Yes, during COVID, there was somewhat of a crash, but at the same time, there was not because people suddenly stopped consuming and that caused insane deflation and prices went way down because all of these companies needed to sell their goods. And so weirdly, it stopped a market crash from happening. But as soon as we got back to how things were, it's almost like nothing happened. We picked up the momentum that we were having before. And so things were starting to look bad during Biden's term, but we had no idea how bad they would get. And the idiots of our country voted for Trump because that's just what happens when the economy goes bad. The party that the economy goes bad under, there is a pendulum effect and it just swings the other way. And who happened to be there to catch the fucking ball? It was Trump. Okay, but Trump did not make the economy better. He made it worse. Biden did not make the economy better. I would say. I mean, he tried to eliminate college debt and stuff like that. But for the most part, he was pretty much a weak president. He was not what we needed right after Trump. And so we got Trump again. And so we are heading further and further towards economic catastrophe if we are not there already. It is just getting worse because there were 2 wars started during Biden's term. And Trump said he was going to stop those wars because the idea being that if we are not aiding wars, if we are not being involved in conflict, we are not spending money on those conflicts. And it is important. Like a lot of people think war might not cost as much as running a country. But the thing is, like, we have such a strong military industrial complex. Think of like the most expensive thing you can buy as a citizen. That's usually property. That's usually property or a company. And you can buy that for like millions of dollars. But militarily, on that level, things are being bought for millions of dollars like every day. Like the economic activity of military products is crazy because missiles cost $100,000 and we're producing them like they're fucking donuts or they're candy. We're producing them at that rate and we're buying them at the same rate. And that's why our national debt is low because military products are the most expensive things you can buy. The government buys them, obviously. And we sell them. We sell them to our allies. But for the most part, when we are fighting wars, we are buying a lot of military weapons and those things instantly get destroyed, especially missiles. Missiles can be $5 million. Jets can be like $25 million and those things are getting destroyed. That is the end point of every military product that gets deployed. It's more than likely it's something that's going to be destroyed. So there is everything that I listed: unemployment, inflation, ethnic tension, public patience for war. All of that is very much at its breaking point. And the only reason we haven't gone to Washington and yanked everyone out of Congress is because of social media. Social media is kind of like a pressure valve. We are now at a point where everyone has social media and everyone can express their opinion. And so because of that, we feel like something has been done. In the past, like in France, they did not have social media. No one was listening to them. So they actually had to go to where the people who ruled the country were and, knock down their fucking door and pull them out and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. You're going to lose your head. Okay, and we're the monarchy thing, we're done with that. So every country has a breaking point. Next one. Water is the next oil. Many internal briefings and war games prepare for future conflicts over freshwater access, especially in Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. Dams, rivers, and aquifers are seen as strategic assets. Okay, so what you're seeing right now in the Iran conflict, and I'm gonna bring it up a lot because it's literally the hottest conflict, and I'm not saying hottest like, oh, it's so popular. I'm saying hottest like it's a hot war that's going on. Okay, so what Iran is threatening to do, Trump is saying we're going to blow up all their freshwater reserves, their desalination plants. We're just going to destroy like their water system. Okay, but Iran is saying if you do that to me, there are 5 countries within our striking capacity that we can also do that to. So whatever you're going to do to me, we're going to do it to Israel. We're going to do it to everyone around. I'm going to put up all the countries that are surrounding Iran. So water is just such a strategic asset. Again, the most common energy that every living thing needs, first and foremost, is water. We're 70%, we're like, I don't know, a human is like 70% water and the world is 70% water. Okay. But I don't know why that's like, why people point out that similarity between the earth and humans, but it just so happens that that's there. Okay. And we need a lot of water to function. It moves stuff around in our bodies. Our bodies are weirdly elemental. Like we have bone and we have like water, like our blood is liquid. So we do need water to function. It carries electrolytes. Something to do with salt. That's what transports all the energy in our body. Okay, water, we need it. So when you cut off water, it's a very quick leverage point. That is what is happening between, it's not getting covered very much, but because China, there are 3 rivers. I will put them up on the screen. There are 3 rivers that flow into India. Maybe it's not 3, maybe it's like 1, but I if my memory serves me right, it's 3. They flow from China into India, and that is fresh water. The thing of it is that China and India, both of them have the most fucking people. Those 2 countries have the most fucking people on the planet. And so China is kind of like, hey, we need this water for us, for our people. And India is like, okay. And China's like, so we're going to build a dam for these rivers that also go to you guys. And we are going to keep all that water and you are going to get none of it. Obviously, what this does is that this pisses off India, and this will probably be a conflict. They are having border disputes already. And when things get hot over there, it will probably be the next thing we talk about. It'll be the next trending topic on the world. Because water is going to be the next oil. There's just not enough of it. And we are also polluting it to an extreme degree. So we need to either find a way to desalinate efficiently and cheaply, and maybe there is no research going into this because, again, the US loves to create situations where they can have leverage over other countries. So yeah, I mean, even Kamala Harris said while she was running in 2024, she was like, you guys know the next time, like the next big thing that we're going to fight over is water, which is crazy for her to say out loud. But it just goes to show like what governments are thinking about now. It's not just oil, it's also water. Next one, public opinion is a resource. All of it, if you want to boil it down, a lot of running a country as a world leader is just controlling resources, not just your own, but others. And one of those resources is public opinion. To leaders, public belief is something to manage like oil or water. If you control the narrative, you can justify sacrifice, delay panic, manufacture unity, prevent rebellion. So the problem with this is the internet. They've lost control of public opinion. They lost control of the narrative. That's what public opinion is, narrative. And what narrative is, narrative decides the direction of the country because narrative is the thing that people follow. And so we have such a fractured public opinion in this country to such a degree that it is like there are multiple narratives going on at once. But this whole Iran Epstein war, as you can call it, the Epstein war is just driving all, like, it's weirdly manufacturing unity. It's creating unity, but against the Trump administration. Like Republicans and Democrats can agree that this war is the stupidest thing Trump has ever done. To the point where Candace Owens, Dave Rubin, Alex Jones, all of these people, pretty much everyone except Ben Shapiro is saying, what the fuck are we doing in Iran? What are we doing there? Like, it's even worse than when we invaded Iraq. It's even worse. Because at least for Iraq, there was an excuse. They did say, oh, they have nuclear weapons. But nowadays, that is just so easily disproven, thanks to the internet, that we are just like, okay, well, there's only one motivation that this could be, and it's for Israel. But yeah, public opinion is a resource. We have, or at least the US government has lost that, the ability to control public opinion. And I have videos about this that go more in depth, but basically, like, you used to be able to, there was only a few news channels and the government could just say, report this, okay? But now with the internet, there's so many points of attack to a, not to a country, but to an official narrative. Like, if a narrative is not logically sound, it will get ripped apart. It will get torn to shreds because people will either come up with information to dispute it or have opinions that are logical arguments to dispute it. Yeah, that's basically where we're at. Next one. Dependence is more powerful than conquest. Modern empires don't always invade. They create dependence through debt, supply chains, currency systems, trade agreements, technology infrastructure. If your rival depends on you, you don't need to occupy them. What country first comes to mind when you think of dependence? China. From an American perspective, we have relied way too heavily on China because they provided cheap consumer goods. And consumer goods are not an energy, but it is something that Americans like to have. And so they got really good at manufacturing, at industry, at like everything. Just they started off as a poor country. So we just told them, hey, to regrow your country after the whole like Mao Zedong fall of like the communist empire, or not the communist empire because they're still communist. Anyway, so back then when China got liberated, they were very they were so behind every other country that it was very bad. It was just like not good to have a humanitarian crisis on that scale, because what could happen is that like refugees just explode out of the country and just, it's kind of like, I don't want to call it an invasion, but it is an injection of like population into the surrounding area, into the US, just other countries around the world. So that wouldn't be good. Also, just on a humanitarian level, like it's not good to have a country that's just like fucked up and also that big, because it's just not good. Like, we're all humans on some level, we know that. So we made an agreement with China, basically saying, you're going to start making goods for us. You're going to do it cheaply. And they were a poor country, so it was okay to do that. Okay, it was okay to say, like, I'm going to give you like $5 for what I would pay someone else $15 for, because $5 to them was a lot better than a few pennies. So this goes on for decades, and China gets really, really rich off of it. And they keep investing in their own industry sector and production capacity, to the point where they now may have better factories than pretty much anyone in the world. Okay, they can make things like, they can make clothes cheaply and fast. They can make technology cheaply and fast. And like, their technology a lot of the time is better than US. It is better than the US's technology. I saw a headline yesterday, or maybe it was even today, that US automobile manufacturers said they were basically groveling to the government and saying, you cannot open our automobile industry to China because it will just wipe out the US automobile industry. And so, yeah, like, dependence is more powerful than conquest. Okay. And right now, China, they are gaining more and more and more dependence every day that the US screws up. Okay. Because one, we're going back to the Iran-Epstein war. What's going on is that Iran is now charging people a toll to go through the Strait of Hormuz, but they are not charging in American dollars. They are charging in Chinese yuan. Okay. And that is kind of setting a precedent that we no longer need to trade internationally in American dollars, because we are too dependent on America. Okay, America used to have all the dependents in the world. Okay, especially after World War II, because we were the last functioning country. Europe got blown to smithereens. Okay, and China was fucking shooting itself in the foot. The Soviet Union got destroyed. So everyone just turned to the US, and this created a golden age for the US that we very much took for granted because we thought it would always be there. And then we got lazy, and then we got entitled, and then we started electing people who were symbols of like lazy entitlement, which is Trump, who is like the king of lazy entitled people. Okay, so we are now becoming the pillar that everyone is leaning on, and that's quickly becoming China. Again, if your rival depends on you, you don't need to occupy them. China's not doing anything right now, and they're just becoming so fucking powerful. Their military rivals ours. Like like the US still has the most powerful in the world, but China is like getting up there. And if they also have the economic might, then they will be the dominant world power. Let's move on. National security is mostly logistics. Movies make it seem like wars are won by bravery. Leaders know wars are won by fuel supply, replacement parts, ammunition production, shipping capacity, industrial output. The real war is factories and freight. So what does this mean? If you know a thing or two about warfare beyond movies, you will know that supply lines are the most important factor in a war because, again, it's energy. It's a form of energy. If you are pushing against a country, if you are having a force dominating or attempting to dominate a country, that force requires energy. And the energy is oil. The energy is ammunition. The energy is food for the troops. So supply lines, that is the real war. That is what, like, if you're wondering why Ukraine is so good right now against Russia, even though Russia is like 10 times bigger than Ukraine, is because Ukraine got really good at destroying fuel supplies. They with drone technology, they are able to destroy Russia's tanks. They are able to destroy their planes. They are able to destroy their supply lines, and they can even destroy their refineries. It's almost like back then. This is just like an analogy, but this is like if back then wars were like two boxers fighting. This is like if one of them invented arrows. Okay, this is how big drones are right now. This is changing warfare on such a level that Ukraine can go against Russia and put up a fight, and they might win. And Iran can put up a fight against the US. Okay, because the US is well known for having a strong power in the sense of like we have the most missiles, we have the most ships, we have the most jets, but Iran has a lot of defensive capabilities, particularly drones. So we're going to move on. The world is run by bottlenecks. Most people imagine the world as a big open market. Leaders see it as a set of fragile bottlenecks. Semiconductor manufacturing, rare earth processing, fertilizer supply, shipping, insurance, undersea cables, satellite networks. If one bottleneck fails, entire countries can be crippled. So the world is run by bottlenecks. This means that, and it's again a form. I don't want to keep saying it, but it is a form of energy in the sense that like these are things that power other things. Okay, semiconductors. You need that. These things that I listed, they're kind of like vital supplements, okay, to a country. You need semiconductors because everything is digital. Everything is computers. In order to create semiconductors, you need to be able to have certain rare earths. And then to make food, you need fertilizer. Undersea cables are how we communicate with the world. Same thing with satellite networks. But the thing is, these things are not everywhere. They're not everywhere, and they are very controlled. So Trump threatened China, and China basically said, we're gonna fucking cut you off our rare earths. Okay, we sell you a lot of rare earths, and we're gonna cut you off completely. And Trump was like, well, actually, I think we can actually go back to what was going on before. Okay. And he made it seem like he won the discussion. He did not. So bottlenecks, like there are just things in the world that everyone needs, and there are not enough of them. And we control supply. So you stop one of these bottlenecks, with like semiconductor processing. And that's a big reason China wants to control Taiwan, because no one else is making semiconductors. But our tech companies have come out and said we are going to try to create semiconductors. We don't want to rely on Nvidia and stuff like that. So now we are going to move on to the darker things that world leaders know that most people do not. Starving a country is easier than invading it. Sanctions, banking restrictions, fertilizer storages, fuel cutoffs. These can break a nation without firing a shot. Modern warfare is often economic strangulation. So when it comes to Trump, he understands on a certain level that tariffs are very bad, but he doesn't realize that it is a double-edged sword, that it will hurt the country that implements them as much as the country that they are being implemented onto. And yeah, like we are doing a lot of these trade restrictions, and I'm going to use Russia as a current example. We have sanctioned them to hell. We have created banking restrictions on them. So a lot of the oligarchs in Russia had accounts in with US banks, and now like we just told them no. Since they invaded Ukraine, we told them you can't use the West's bank anymore. You can't hide your property. You can't buy property over here. You can't hide your assets over here. We're gonna take them now. And so this obviously like pissed off the oligarchs, but they can't do anything because Putin, much like Trump, is having an ego war. Okay, he invaded Ukraine. It did not go the way he wanted, and the more he digs himself further into this war, the worse it gets for him and his country, because they kind of became isolated. They can't trade with people. A lot of payment processing, like digitally, was done by Western countries, and then they just said no. And we moved all of our companies out of there. Like we moved Coke out of there, Coca-Cola. We moved McDonald's out of there. And obviously, like all these Western companies had to pull out of there. Apple, Russia, you're not getting Apple phones anymore. So yeah, we totally severed them from all the countries in our alliance in NATO. Now they can only really deal with China. And again, China is sitting back, and China is funding the Russia-Ukraine war, but they are only funding Russia enough to keep the war going because they like that Russia is running itself into the ground. Why? Because they are becoming indebted. Russia is becoming indebted to China. And there is even I think it's like the northeast section of Russia that is kind of bordering China. China is putting in a lot of industry in that area. They're literally creating towns within Russia that are like taking wood. They're building like lumber towns, and they are filling it with Chinese workers, and they are having everything written in Chinese there. And they are basically terraforming culturally a big chunk of Russia. And what people think is happening is that at some point, Russia is going to be so indebted to China that China will say, okay, you know what? Instead of paying us back all the money you owe me, give us this chunk of Russia. And that way China has a supply of wood, because Russia is pretty much very foresty. Okay. It's like they have a lot of lumber there, and China wants that. They are basically, and they might not even annex that part of Russia. They might just say like, we're going to be here indefinitely, and this is going to be our agreement. And for all intents and purposes, that section of Russia will be China. So yeah, that is economic strangulation. Starving a country is easier than invading it. And China knows this very well. Next one, human rights are often treated like a PR tool. Leaders may genuinely care, but in practice, human rights rhetoric is frequently used to justify sanctions, justify interventions, weaken rivals, and build alliances. The public sees morality. Leaders often see leverage. And this also goes for the next one. And these two, you can think of them as like together. Most democracy promotion is strategic. When powerful countries support freedom movements, it's often because the current government is blocking resource access, aligning with an enemy bloc, controlling a key location. Democracy is sometimes a goal, but alignment is always a goal. Okay, so how are these two like things related? Human rights are often a PR tool, and democracy promotion is strategic. So these two are world leaders saying we are doing crazy shit, but we are doing it for a good cause. We are doing it for human rights. We are doing it to spread democracy. These countries are doing fucked up shit, so we are going to invade. It's not just that, it's also within our own country. we like Democrats like to posture that they are very pro-immigration, and I'm sure like a lot of them are, like especially the progressive ones. But as I've mentioned many times on this channel, immigrants are needed for their labor, and that is the main reason they are allowed. It's not because we are letting them in for a better life. It should be like what we do, but it's really because we need their cheap labor. If we really wanted to, we could let no immigrants in. We could stop them from crossing the border. We can stop them from overstaying their visa, but we don't do that. We let a certain amount of them stay because they don't have the same rights that an American does. And so this is an instance of human rights being treated like a PR tool. And you saw a lot of this in the Iraq war. I remember being a little kid and everyone was extremely patriotic. There were American flags everywhere. It was like every day was 4th of July. After 9/11 and when we invaded, we were told that those countries in the Middle East are basically, they're all terrorists, all of them, even the citizens, which like to a little kid brain, like why are you telling little kids that? And then we were also told we are going to have them be democratic. And what does democracy mean? That means the people vote and your vote matters, and it's not just one person on top telling you what to do. So that was the justification. And as the war went on, we realized that it was just for resources. And that was basically the first time the average person woke up to what the government is doing. So yeah, the Iraq war was very eye-opening for us. And if the Vietnam War kind of gave us an idea that Americans are not the heroes we thought we were in World War II, then the Iraq war put the nail in the coffin. All right, let's move on. A country's real vulnerability is its elites. I thought like you might not know that. Our real vulnerability, it's the elites. Why is that? Average people think propaganda targets the masses. In reality, intelligence agencies target generals, business leaders, media owners, ministers, bankers, because if you control the top 500 people, you control the entire country. Okay, there are these things called thought leaders and influencers. And I mean this not as like the micro celebrities on TikTok. I mean this as like people who actually influence the narrative of the country and they influence what people think. And yeah, you can say like on some level, like Clavicular is influencing like the young men of America. But honestly, it's more like big celebrities, politicians, people who are in the church and very influential, like big ministers, you know, and they need to control all of them. The CIA has a interest in controlling these assets because you take one of them and it's almost like if you control a minister and you can tell him what to do, then he goes to his entire church and repeats that. So propaganda, a lot of these people fall for propaganda. They fall for like this manufactured narrative. And I'm sure the government is working very hard to understand how to manufacture trends and narratives because private companies are already doing it. I just saw a headline today that Geese, the band, some people might know them, some people might like them. I think they're good, but their agency has said, or they have some kind of like management agency that basically said, yeah, we manufactured the trend of Geese. Like we have the ability to manufacture trends. And so what the US government is going to get better at is they're going to get better at that exactly. They are going to not let the narrative escape anymore. Like from the 2010s to the early to mid 2020s, maybe to 2030, people have been able to create their own trends organically. But because there are now bots and because there is AI, it is becoming possible to mimic a trend and then get like real people on the trend. And I've said this before, the most important thing you are going to need in the future is to be able to discern. Discernment protects you from AI. If you can discern AI text from real text and AI image from real image, that is a big up to you. If you can discern whether there is an interest from the government to a trend that is going on, such as the Ring camera trend and scaring people with like Ring camera footage in order to build a surveillance state, then you are ahead. You can discern these things. Discernment is the most necessary skill coming into the future. Discern, be able to tell when you are being manipulated. This is like one of the reasons I've started this channel or took it in the direction that it's going, because it initially started out as an art channel and it will probably go back to it. But because of how politics is going and how how world conflict is just intertwined within everyday life, I have become more informative about what's going on. So let's move on. Assassinations aren't the main tool, blackmail is. And that is another way that spy agencies are controlling influential people. The average person imagines spy agencies killing people constantly. In reality, leaders know blackmail is often more efficient. Compromat, financial traps, bribery pipelines, secret recordings. A controlled politician is worth more than a dead one. Okay, this is why we don't do assassinations anymore. That's old tech. Blackmail is the new thing, because blackmail, let me put it this way. If you had an enemy, would you rather kill them or would you rather control their mind and make them do things for you? You would rather have control over them, especially if they're in a position of power. If you wipe out someone in a position of power, they are just going to get replaced and they are still controlling your rivals. But if you can control the person at the top who is your rival on a country level, then you can get them to sabotage themselves. And we are seeing this in our very country with Trump. A lot of people knew that Russia had leverage on Trump, and they still probably do. And a lot of people are now coming to find out, ever since the Epstein files dropped, that Trump was very close to Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein basically worked for Israel. What we are seeing is that blackmail is the new thing. It's just necessary. If you are impervious to if you can't be blackmailed, then it's like they're going to have to kill you. They're going to have to kill you and replace you with someone who can be blackmailed. Trump is probably the most blackmailed leader in the history of the US, because he was not only blackmailed because he was doing Epstein stuff, but also because he was very much in debt and all the major banks would not lend to him anymore. And so he turned to Russia and he said, let me borrow money. Okay. And then so when he became president, Russia basically told him, we'll get rid of all your debt if you do a few things for us. Okay. And this is all my opinion. There has been reports of that would lead you to suspect this, but there have not been solid, maybe there have been solid reports. So I'm going to try to find them. But anyway, yeah. So blackmail is the thing that countries are doing now. It's the 21st century. It's easier than ever to blackmail someone. Everyone has a camera. Everyone is doing bad shit. Everyone is getting filmed. There's cameras everywhere and they're tiny. Last one, the real global game is preventing rivals from industrializing. Most people think global competition is about GDP. Leaders often think in one brutal sentence: industrial rivals are future enemies. So the game becomes keep rivals exporting raw materials, block them from building advanced industry, limit their tech access, keep their currency weak, and prevent regional alliances. This is one of the deepest logics behind development aid, trade rules, and coups. So what is all this? Like I said before, we helped China get up from, they were basically a homeless person that we brought up and we put them in an executive position and we turned their life around. Okay, that was China. They were on crack, they were a heroin user, they were on fucking fent, and they were a zombie, and we brought them back to life and we made them Elon Musk. So we realized what we did by doing that, and we created our biggest fucking rival by helping them. So now when we do this for countries, we kind of do it strategically. We do not let them industrialize too much, because what happened is China industrialized to the furthest extent of any country, and they are the country's factory basically, and everyone has to pay China, and China is getting very rich off of this. And so we are this shit cannot happen again. So one of the things I have thought in the past is we should, what we did to China, we should do to Africa. But the thing is, there's a lot of things preventing that from happening. For one, Africa is a bunch of little nations. It's not just one nation like China is. But I think Africa is going to be the new factory for the world, because what's going on with China is that they have industrialized so well that they went from a poor country to a rich country. And now they're more like most of the citizens now, they have a middle class. They have an upper middle class. They our middle class in the US is going away, but theirs is getting bigger and bigger. And they're okay, we cannot, a lot of people will not want to work in factories soon enough, because Everyone in cities already doesn't work in factories. They have to like import people from the rural areas because China has like really poor rural areas where they have like rice farms and they just do agriculture for the rest of the country. But most of the country is focused on growing its cities and increasing its intelligence capacity. But because of that, because of the way China is growing middle class wise, like they're like, okay, like we cannot have factories forever. So what China is doing is that they are investing into Africa and all these countries. They're building ports. They're telling the government, hey, we're gonna like build all this stuff for you, but you need to allow us to build factories here and stuff like that. And so China is trying to create its own China. They're trying to create their own little China to manufacture goods for them. They have transcended being China, the manufacturer, and they are trying to be China, the empire, and replace the US. So they are going to need their own China. They are going to need Africa. I don't know why the US isn't like kind of getting ahead of them on this. Probably because we are too occupied with our own infighting and political turmoil, and our leader cannot fucking do anything. He's dying. He is shitting his pants. He is having health issues every other month. And he is going crazy. We are living under what used to be just something you'd see in fantasy stories. We are living under a mad king. So back to the point, the global game is preventing rivals from industrializing. And this is another excuse that we are saying for the Epstein War. We are trying to stop Iran from creating nuclear power, because once Iran creates nuclear power, they cannot be pushed around anymore. They now have, like, if the world was a room and there were some people with guns and some people without guns, basically Iran is trying to build themselves a gun. And last year we did strikes on them to destroy their capacity to create nuclear weapons. And so they did not have any capacity to create nuclear weapons. They have nuclear energy departments, they have nuclear energy factories, but then we are now saying you can't even have that. So we don't want them to have any nuclear at all. And when I say we, I mean Trump. And when I say Trump, I mean Israel. So yeah, they're stopping Iran from industrializing. This is Israel doing that. So like all of trade has something to do with that. Coups, when we knock out a leader, that's one of the reasons. That's pretty much it. Stop people from industrializing, stop other countries from industrializing, because we do not want them to reach that tech tree and then become a world power. So if you wonder why some countries are like especially in Africa, there's constant like civil wars and infighting, and in the Middle East as well. We do not want them to be stable. We do not want them to industrialize. We do not want them to become China. All right. But China has already escaped our grip. China is making a fool of the US without lifting a finger, and China will probably be like, if the US cannot undo what Trump has done, if the US cannot strengthen relationships with our allies again, if the US cannot stay out of wars, then we are just going to become what Britain is today, because Britain used to be the dominant world power with the Dutch East India Company. And then, like, what happened? They used to own most of the world. They had a country everywhere. They had a territory on every continent. And then they started losing wars. They started losing their trade routes. And this just happened, like, over time, because they got too comfortable. They got too fucking comfortable in their position. And then here comes the US. Like, we are no longer going to be a British colony, even though we have all these resources, and Britain should have treated us better. They lost the resources, okay? And they lost the US, and the US ended up becoming the dominant world power, all right? But that is just for now, okay? We are seeing China is going to dominate, and this is the century for them to do it, because everything is digital. They do not have to actually invade other countries like Britain had to. They just have to control trade. They have to control trade routes. They're building their own trade routes called the New Silk Road. They are building their own alliances with countries on the New Silk Road. They are trying, like, if you control trade in the world, then you have leverage, then you are a world power, if you can enforce that trade route. And like that's just what's looking like it's going to happen if the US cannot get back on track. These were 15 things world leaders have to know that normies don't know. I hope you have a good day. I hope again that I've broadened your perspective. I have brought you some knowledge that you were not aware of before. Maybe you were aware, and this is like a refresher. If you have like any other ideas, put them in the comments. I hope you have a good day. Goodbye.